Hey, how's it going, Professor? Hope everything's going well with you. My name's Jairo Jerez, and I'm in your juvenile delinquency class, and I'm going to be presenting on juvenile justice and drug crime. And when we talk about the link between juvenile justice and drug crime, we first have to separate drug users from drug sellers, and how both involvement with drugs affect juveniles differently. And when we refer to juvenile drug users and how they influence violent crime, I mean, there's no questioning it. A kid's mental capacity on its own without drugs, they can't control their impulses. They can't control their actions. A lot of them act sporadically out of emotion. All drugs do is enhance that. And as for drug sellers, juvenile drug sellers, a lot of them take to selling drugs early. They drop out of school, and all they learn how to do is sell drugs, and they learn the business of selling drugs. And just like using drugs, selling drugs is just as addicting, especially for a juvenile who doesn't have an educational background, doesn't have any prior job experience, has probably gotten a criminal record. They don't have any more options. It becomes institutionalized. As for drug users and their relationship with their family, a lot of times drugs get in the way of the relationship with the family, and they also get in the way with the parents' ability to kind of intervene in the kid's life and try to straighten out the kid. I know about a lot of cases where kids, they end up smoking weed way too early, not because it's okay. Every kid is gonna smoke, but there are times when kids use drugs too early, and their lives become revolved around drugs, and they lose sight of what's really important. Things like prom, things like getting good grades, and they lose out on all the experiences that help healthy childhood development. There's also no question about the effects that drugs have on a juvenile's health. A juvenile drug user, it's like the saying that kids' brains are sponges. Kids, juveniles, their bodies are like sponges. You get a kid, you might give a little kid a drug that's not like it's not as strong, let's say weed, and you might damage the kid just off of that one interaction with weed because their bodies are still growing and they don't know how to handle all the stimulation that a drug might offer. Not to mention the ill health concerns of, like, depending on the severity of the drug problem. If it's heroin, obviously all the infections and diseases that come through the use of needles. If it's coke, all the infections all the sicknesses you get from dependency. As for drug sellers and their health concerns, a lot of the times it's a mental problem. It's that, like, it's the fear of, like, not being able to leave your house safely because people know that you sell drugs and people want to come after you to get what you have. A lot of the times like the streets become like, it's like the streets take over the juvenile's mind, and it's like they become obsessed with what's going on in the street, who's in what gang, who's selling what drugs, and it's like, where did the kid go wrong? As for drug users and their ability to go to school, school's completely out the window for a lot of times. Kids stop going to school and they don't have a drug problem, let alone a kid who actually has a drug problem. If a kid has a drug problem, there's nobody telling me that they're gonna sit in class and put up with not using drugs for 5, 6, 7 hours a day. If you're a kid and you're hooked on drugs, you're not going to school because most of the time you can't get drugs in school. So the inevitable is us drop out. The reality of the situation is if a kid's selling drugs, he's simply not involved in school. After school, maybe he'll probably use school as a medium to kind of get to sell drugs, sell to his other schoolmates. But that's his focus. His focus is money, to make money. And honestly, after you start making money selling drugs as a juvenile, and you're making money selling drugs as a kid, a lot of that money is blinding, and they lose sight of what's really important and the money that you could potentially make in the long run by actually going to school. In the simplest way of putting it, drugs even in the simplest form, alcohol, tobacco are intended for adults because they alter your state of mind. And kids aren't old enough and they aren't wise enough to know how to control themselves and keep themselves from becoming addicted. And in the cases where we have, let's say, an adult introducing a juvenile to drugs, whether it be selling, whether it be teaching him how to sell drugs, whether it be lacing him with drugs, they should pay the penalty 10 times over what it is now. Because not only are you creating a systemic problem of drugs in juveniles, but you're taking a kid you're robbing a kid of a chance of having a childhood